Well, it goes without saying that Genshin Impact version 4.7 is definitely gonna be packed with lore, but it's also going to be very emotional considering what we saw in the trailer, not only with Aether and Lumine's reunion, but probably also with Sigewinne Story Quest, but let's go in order. This is a theory video. I will use information available in the game and in the livestream, but my theories and conclusions are not to be considered the official lore of the game, unless I got something right and it's confirmed in a later update of the game itself. With that being said, this video is going to be split into 4 sections: Clorinde's Story Quest, Sigewinne's Story Quest, the Imaginarium Theater, and Dainsleif's Archon Quest. Of course, I'm leaving the most interesting one for last. This video was supposed to have a section on Natlan because we were shown 3 Saurians and quite a bit of the landscape, but I decided to make a separate dedicated video about it that will come out very soon. Without further ado, let's dive deep into the 4.7 livestream analysis. Clorinde's Story Quest, the Raperia chapter, which by the way in Latin means rapier, seems to be all about the Marechaussee hunters, but apart from Navia, who is basically always involved with Clorinde, what's weird is that both Furina and Lini will also be part of this quest. Crystal Lee, Clorinde's voice actress, told us that we will take part of a very special tabletop troop adventure, and considering that it's not listed among the events, it should be the main or initial focus of Clorinde's story quest. We also know that part of her story has to do with her master's sudden disappearance. We don't know who her master is, but it could be connected to this wall or stone gate with that strange symbol on it. The symbol is pretty enigmatic. I am 95% certain it represents a very stylized hat with a plume, which reminds me both of the poetry of Days Past from the Song of Days Past artifact set, but also the Lock Knight symbol we saw during the Fontinalia festival. The Song of Days Past talks about Erinies, the chief of Aremorica, the leader of the resistance against Remuria, while the first ever Marechaussee hunter was Cassiodor. But we also learned from Ruggiero that the Lock Knights and the Marechaussee hunters were basically the same people, Remurian rebels that joined the Fontanians to defend Fontaine from Remuria, so in general, Clorinde's story quest is probably going to be something like a continuation of Remuria's story we learned in 4.6. Going back to Clorinde's master, and I know this is gonna sound crazy, could it be that it's actually Erinies? I mean, we have never been told that she died. Furthermore, Clorinde is basically the only successor to the Marechaussee hunters of old, so it would make sense that her master is an original Marechaussee hunter. Another option would be Euergetia, one of the Harmusts, but we don't know if she survived the fall of Remuria, nor if she joined Fontaine as a Marechaussee hunter. Back to the trailer, what's also interesting is that during this quest, we will meet a man who Clorinde will recognize as a
real Marechaussee hunter.
By the way he's holding his sword. We don't know who this man is, but we do see one at the beginning of the video, the one accompanying the group into that Remurian looking place. This man is wearing some unique clothes, so he's relevant to the quest, but of course we can't be sure if it's actually him. Something also interesting, about which I have no idea at all, is Furina holding a silver sword while looking at it with stupor, I could say. Now, apart from the fact that the main characters really don't want to use any decent sword in this game, like why is this even a thing, but we do see her summoning the Salon Solitaire at the beginning of the video when everyone is fighting. Is Furina going to fight for the first time in her life? Sigewinne Story Quest, Nereida's chapter, is a little harder to figure out. It seems that it will have to do with some disease that every Fontanian suffers from, but it's also going to be about her being a Melusine and, most likely, the fact that she looks human. Now, there are 2 main aspects of her story that were revealed in the trailer. Sigewinne says,
"Do you really think it matters whether I'm Melusine or a human?"
I don't think this means what it sounds like. She's most likely not talking about her appearance as a human-looking Melusine, but more like people don't trust her as a doctor because she is a Melusine and not a human. This reminds me of Nevelette's story quest, in which we saw how people despise the Melusines out of prejudice because they were born from Elenas. The Melusine have been and still are the target of people's prejudice, and they are sometimes still victims of violent acts. This is probably going to be the central theme of Sigewinne's story quest. The second aspect revealed in the trailer is what the unknown man says.
You used it yourself, didn't you? That's why you have a human appearance.
First of all, the English voice actor sounds like Joe Zija, Risley's voice actor, but I double checked it with the Japanese version and it's not Risley. You might say, why did you check the Japanese version? Well, I've watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventures so many times, I feel like I would recognize Jotaro's voice. Anyway, what this man says, again, probably doesn't mean what it sounds like. I don't think he's talking about the reason why she looks like a human despite being a Melusine, but it feels more like she's going to use something, some kind of medicine, because in Japanese he says and kusuri means medicine, to temporarily look like a human and be accepted. The story quest may be about someone or a group of people she wants to cure, but they don't want to be cured by a Melusine doctor because
They don't trust me at all.
So she found a way to transform into a human thanks to some kind of medicine to be able to save them nonetheless. There's one last thing about Sigewinne that I want to talk about, and it has to do with her human appearance, but also the fact that she can create source water droplets. Her constellation is Nereides, and as I've said in previous videos, in Greek mythology the Nereids are water nymphs just like the Oceanids, with the only difference being that the Oceanids are the personification of springs, while the Nereids are daughters of an Oceanid, Doris, and are sea nymphs. We all know that the Melusines were born around 400 years ago, when Alain and Marianne had a confrontation against Jacob and Lyris inside Elenas, and because of a shockwave, many pieces of the mecha that accompanied the Guillotine siblings ended up inside Elenas' flesh, causing the birth of the Melusines, probably because of the Pneumosia energies used to power those mecha, or at least that's my interpretation. As a consequence, each Melusine still has the component, or token as they call them, that caused their birth, and they value them as their most valuable item. When it comes to Sigewinne, we don't know what caused her birth, but considering that Lyris ended up absorbing Marianne when all hell broke loose inside Elenas, I would say that maybe her token is something that belonged to the Oceanid Marianne/Lyris hybrid, which caused Sigewinne to have a human appearance from Marianne and some water dragon related powers, namely the source water droplets from Lyris, who as an Oceanid was created by Egeria, an artificial water dragon. This could also explain why her title is Wondrous Dragon Heir, but also the fact that Neuvillette is uniquely attached to her, almost like a father. Next we have the Imaginarium Theater. Now this event is going to be very interesting. First of all, the concierge Wolfie is literally a mix of Misha and Hanu from Sariel, with the only difference being that he sounds like Mika and he doesn't go instead of talking. The event will take place in a secret room/domain created by a mage inside Mondstadt Library, where Wolfie is waiting for a guest to take the stage and put on a magnificent performance as the main character in said mage's story. We will interact with a book on the table and we will be able to take the stage. Now this book, as we see in the trailer, tells us that the whole event was orchestrated by the Hexen Circle, because we see the same table that they use for their meetings on the secret floating island in Mondstadt from the Windbloom event in version 3.5. But who is this Madame Mage Wolfie talks about? Well, despite the fact that Alice would be the obvious choice, I think it's Anders' daughter, specifically because the red-haired girl in the paintings literally has a boar with a crown on her head. Although Anders' daughter seems to be the Madame Mage, the Imaginarium Theater seems to be a group project. 3 more mages may have been involved, and we can see it from the place itself. First of all, we see Nicole's teapot and cup in 2 different moments. They are next to the book in the trailer, and they are floating in the section of the livestream dedicated to the event. Then we see a bunch of those multi-pointed stars that were literally everywhere in Mona's domain in the Summer Fantasia event in version 2.8, so one of the witches may be Barbeloth Trismegistus, Mona's master. In the Imaginarium Theater there are also a lot of these boxes with eyes that we are also familiar with from the Velurin Mirage in version 3.8, the word inside a bottle created by Alice, who is probably the 4th witch behind this new event. If you saw the 3 witches from the difficulty page on the book, those are, I think, the same witch, Anders' daughter, in different moments of her life. A child for easy mode, a young woman for normal mode, and an adult for hard mode, and considering the book in her hand, is the same witch top right in the Hexen Circle quadrant from version 3.5. Something else that really caught my eye was the stage of the Imaginarium Theater that looks awfully similar to the Imaginarium from, again, the Summer Fantasia event in 2.8, Fischl's domain in this case, and in a sense it could be another reference to Alice being involved since she owns the Golden Apple Archipelago. I don't wanna say it, but they basically reused old assets, which is comprehensible considering how much work the developers put into them despite the fact that they were available for basically 15 days. Lastly, this scene with the two huge planets and their satellites has nothing to do with the new world the person was talking about in the trailer. This was an attempt to trick us into thinking that they are related, but this is just another stage of the Imaginarium Theater, which is obvious because of the unique key in the center to start the challenge. This section of the video is all about Dainsleif's new Archon Quest, something we've been waiting for a very long time now. Let's start with the voice we talked about in the previous section. I double checked the voice with the Japanese but also the Chinese version of the trailer because in English he sounded a lot like the singer from Cariber, but he has completely different voices in the other two languages, so it shouldn't be him. Considering what Zach Aguilar, Aether's voice actor, says, this voice may be Cariber, although it would mean that despite the fact that he had been cured of the curse, he still managed to live for 400 years. He talks about someone leaving behind the Shrouded Sun to go to the New World, where they could forget about their suffering and they didn't need to try to distinguish what was wrong or blasphemous anymore. Then it's clear that they cut a big chunk of the dialogue, but he says that the people paid a price for whatever they obtained and their souls became cleansed and pure. I think that the first half is about the first humans leaving their world, the old world, and being transferred into the microcosm of Teyvat, where they didn't need to care about anything at all, since everything was given to them, and they had to simply follow the rules imposed on them by the Primordial One, so as long as they didn't fall into temptation, the only taboo the Primordial One created, everything would have been fine, which is basically what I talked about in my previous video, the order and harmony of Teyvat. The second half instead seems to be about Kharia, the powers they obtained and the price they paid for it, that is the extraction of their memories, what he defines as the cleansing and purification of their souls, and this is basically what I've always theorized. The cubes we saw in Kharia didn't destroy the nation, they deprived the people of their memories, probably to protect Irminsul from the forbidden knowledge they acquired, preventing the destruction of Teyvat. Fontaine and Natlan are probably going to be the last two chances Dainsleif has to talk about Kharia, because we will probably hear Pierrot's side of the story when we'll get to Snezhnaya, so this last Dainsleif's quest will probably be as packed with Kharian lore as they can get, meaning that the voice should be talking about Kharia and the origins of Teyvat. This is supported by the fact that we saw some unified nation style structures, but above all this room with, once again, these female statues holding a cup that we already saw in Enkanomiya, the upside down city in the chasm, but also in the 4.2 Archon Quest, where we found the slates that depicted the prophecy, although they were sculpted in a very different style. I've always believed that these statues represented one of the shades, but could it be that they have always been Egeria, the one who created all living beings in Teyvat? I mean, in version 4.0 we saw the same statue holding a cup and then, in the same place, a very similar one, but with a sword/scale in her hands, which is definitely Egeria, but that's probably beside the point right now. Back to the trailer, we see Dainsleif in the Unified Nation room, an abyss portal opens up and Lumine arrives. She says,
"That's quite the gamble, but I believe that I am the one walking into a trap."
Which makes me think that she is not talking to Dainsleif, but with someone else about Dainsleif's invitation to meet, which could explain why she shows up with a sword in hand. Now, as many of you know, I don't trust Dainsleif, not even one bit. I don't think he's helping anyone, he's most likely using us just like he used Lumine. Let me explain. In the livestream they showed us that gorgeous but heartbreaking animation as a way to explain Dainsleif's Archon Quest, and there are two main aspects that caught my eye. The first one doesn't really have anything to do with Dainsleif, but after the cataclysm, Lumine and Aether woke up in Teyvat in two very specific moments of the day. Lumine at dawn and Aether at sunset, and this reminded me of Enkanomiya, specifically the two achievements called Phosphorus Guidance and Hesperus Boons. In Greek mythology, Phosphoros and Hesperos are two siblings and they represent the morning and evening star, which is Venus because it is only visible at dawn and at dusk. The other aspect that caught my eye is the different relationships between the twins and their companions. Whereas Aether and Paimon are friends and they're always together, Lumine and Dainsleif's relationship is cold, rigid, distant. This is especially clear because of a specific detail. Throughout the video, we always see Aether and Paimon being together, doing things together, being physically close to each other and enjoying the journey. Aether is sometimes sad about Lumine, but his sadness doesn't get worse because his journey is filled with hope. Lumine and Dainsleif are instead completely different. Dainsleif is always far away from Lumine, they never really interact with each other, and above all, Dainsleif is always staring at her, which feels like he's keeping an eye on her, but not in a good way, she's almost under surveillance. Lumine, differently from Aether, goes through a range of emotions. She's sad, then she's dead inside, then she falls into complete despair, and that's because she doesn't have a moral support. What really made this clear for me was the last scene of the video. Paimon grabs Aether's hand with her usual smile on her face, and you can basically hear her say something like,
How about we explore the area ahead of us later?
sorry, I meant something like,
Come on, let's go!
with the happiest tone ever. While Dainsleif approaches Lumine from her back, slightly touches her shoulder and keeps walking forward, as if he were saying, we're moving out, get up. It really feels like he's giving orders, he doesn't care about her or her feelings, which shows on Lumine's enraged expression. With this in mind, let's go back to the trailer, specifically when Dainsleif says,
I shall have my vengeance.
I think we're finally gonna find out why Dainsleif went on a journey with Lumine and why he's interacting with us 500 years later. In the trailer, we hear someone talking about Dainsleif's goal, which may not be related to his vengeance from before, and that the
Loom of Fate has already been completed.
Now this person calls him Captain Dainsleif, which sounds like he may be one of his soldiers. I can think of three possibilities here. It's a soldier who managed to survive for 500 years just like Dainsleif, or this is, once again, a dream of the past, because, you know, an everlasting dream intertwined. This would allow us to experience the events from Khaenri'ah, maybe through Dainsleif's memories this time, and the Loom of Fate would turn out not to be something Clothar came up with on his own, but a concept that already existed back in Khaenri'ah. Or, lastly, it's someone from Khaenri'ah from 500 years ago that joined the Abyss Order and for some reason calls Dainsleif Captain. Now, we still need to figure out Dainsleif's vengeance, and to do that, let's backtrack a little bit. We know that Zurvan, one of the party, found Dainsleif in the Girl of the Sands, and he was holding a signet ring tied in his hand, which sounds like he lost someone dear to him because of the cataclysm. Then we witness the Abyss Order's attempt to lift the curse on the people of Khaenri'ah in the chasm. What happened during that quest really made me feel like Dainsleif is not a good guy. The Abyss Order did indeed hurt the Hillagers with their device, but if you think about it, that device actually lifted the curse. When Halfdan jumped on the device and absorbed its powers, his soul was actually saved, here again his memories, and he went back to the Leylands, which shouldn't have been possible because of the curse, which prevents them from going back to the Leylands, so their concept of death comes when they basically stop existing. So if the Abyss Order did find a way to lift the curse, why would Dainsleif stop them still? Could it be that Lumine was right back in Liyue? That he is the enemy, that he really doesn't care about the Khaenri'ahs, but also that he doesn't want them to be saved? Could it be that the vengeance he talks about is against the entirety of Khaenri'ah because the acquired forbidden knowledge caused the cataclysm and as a consequence also the death of someone dear to him? Could it be that his journey with Lumine was his way of punishing her for being one of the main causes of the cataclysm? To conclude this section, at the end of the video we see Aether and Lumine finally meeting again, and don't keep your hopes up. It's not gonna end in a good way, she's definitely leaving again. My question is, where are they? Well, we see this, I guess, lake. They're obviously walking on the water, because why not? We see the same plants from the Garden of Paradisa, and the traveler is indeed aligned with Dendro, but we also see some Marcotte from Fontaine. There's also a huge tree somewhere else, but above all there is nothing in the background, just the sky and some little floating islands all around. I think it's obvious what I'm going to say, but is this the floating island of Celestia? Are we finally going up there? If it is, and I hope it is, it looks different from the one in the manga, that's for sure. When it comes to...
Do you believe your sibling to have betrayed you?
I honestly have no idea. Considering that Dainsleif has always told us that the Abyss Order are evil and Lumine sided with them instead of going with Aether, why would he even ask that question in the first place? So maybe this question will happen when we're about to find out some hidden truth, something that will reveal Dainsleif's true intentions, potentially his betrayal. To me, he sounds like he meant something like, "What, you thought your sibling betrayed you? I've been tricking you all along and you'd never noticed." Alas, we have far too little to figure this out, and Dainsleif's middle name is Enigma, which doesn't help at all. So sadly, I think we'll just have to wait a few more days when version 4.7 will finally be released to find out. And that's it, I hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, and if you're interested in Genshin Impact theory videos, consider subscribing. My next video will be all about the Saurians, as I said at the beginning, and I'll work as fast as I can to release it very soon. I have some interesting theories about the Saurians and about Notland in general, so I really want to share them as soon as possible. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, over and out.